face in the water. I'll tell you why that I like this place. Just slow right down, see your face in the water. Come on down from your mountain top. I see you on the valley floor, the river flows on and on it goes.
In October of 2025, OpenAI conducted a share sale which valued the company at $500 billion. This makes it the most valuable privately held startup in history. The company is reportedly planning to conduct an IPO in either late 2026 or early 2027. They're planning to price that IPO at a $1 trillion valuation and hope to raise more than $60 billion from the listing. They will most definitely need this money because the company is a cash incinerator. In previous videos, we've talked about how the company is losing a lot of money. Up until now, we've been relying on sketchy estimates and media reports, but now we finally have some real data revealing how much OpenAI is losing. OpenAI's first large corporate backer was Microsoft, which made an inaugural $1 billion investment in 2019. To date, Microsoft has invested over $11 billion into OpenAI, mostly in the form of credits to its Azure cloud computing service. OpenAI was originally conceived as a non-profit entity, but they transitioned to a for-profit company. This simplifies the corporate structure, and we now know that Microsoft owns 27% of OpenAI's outstanding shares. OpenAI is now classified as an equity affiliate in Microsoft's financial statements. That means that Microsoft has to report its share of OpenAI's profit or losses each quarter. For the 3 months ended September 30th, 2025, Microsoft recognized $4.1 billion of losses from its OpenAI investment. That $4.1 billion is Microsoft's 27% share of the loss. So in the third quarter alone, OpenAI lost $15.2 billion. We don't know for sure how much revenue OpenAI is generating, but according to media reports, they generated $4.3 billion of revenue in the first half of 2025. Their revenue is growing quickly and is projected to be $12.7 billion for the full year, so they expect to make $8.4 billion in the second half of the year. If we assume a somewhat linear rate of revenue growth, maybe they'll make $3.5 billion in the third quarter and $4.9 billion in the fourth quarter. So in the third quarter, OpenAI probably incurred a net loss more than 4 times greater than its revenue. OpenAI spends an obscene amount of money on computing power to develop and run its AI models. To date, we've seen no clear path to profitability. The company's most recent product is an AI video generator called Sora 2. This product has raised even more questions about the long-term viability of the company's business model. In conjunction with the launch of Sora 2, they also released a mobile app that lets users create and share AI-generated videos. You can think of the Sora app as basically a worse version of TikTok, full of AI slop videos. Generating these videos is extremely compute-intensive. OpenAI is likely incurring billions of dollars of computing costs to operate Sora, while generating almost zero revenue. In this video, we'll try to understand OpenAI's increasingly bizarre business strategy, and what we can expect going into the company's expected IPO next year. This video is brought to you by Moomoo, a one-stop trading platform trusted by over 26 million users across the US and globally. Moomoo offers zero commissions on stocks, ETFs, and options trades, free level 2 data, and real-time option chain data. What differentiates Moomoo from other brokerages is it provides a powerful all-in-one investment platform. For example, let's look at Apple. If we go over to the Fundamentals tab, we can see that Apple's price-to-earnings ratio is high compared to its historical range, indicating that the stock might be overvalued. We can see their smartphone market share, their revenue broken down by segment, their reported financial results versus analyst expectations, and a bunch of financial data. It's super useful to be able to kickstart your investment research all within the Moomoo app. Currently, Moomoo is running an amazing new user promotion. They offer a 3.6% yield on your idle cash. But for the first 3 months, they offer an additional 4.5%, bringing your total yield up to 8.1%. Additionally, if you open a new account and deposit $100, they'll give you a $20 fractional share of Nvidia for free. The more you deposit, the more Nvidia shares they'll give you, up to $1,000. This promotion only lasts until the end of the year, so make sure to sign up today with the link in the description below. OpenAI released its video generation service called Sora in December of 2024. At first, it was only available to people who already subscribed to ChatGPT Plus or Pro. It was available on the desktop and allows you to make videos based on text prompts. At first, Sora didn't get that much attention. You can make short clips of woolly mammoths walking across a desert and other gimmicky things like that. But there weren't very many obvious use cases. Not that many people used it because it was only available to paying ChatGPT subscribers. On September 30th, 2025, OpenAI launched Sora 2. Sora 2's technical capabilities are much greater than Sora 1. Sora 2 can generate longer and higher fidelity videos with synchronized audio, realistic motion, and persistent characters. But perhaps the most important new development was the Sora app. Concurrently with the release of Sora 2, OpenAI launched the Sora app. The Sora app has a TikTok-like scrolling feed. The Sora app is free to download. Anyone can download it, start generating AI videos, and post them on the app for other people to view. The app quickly went viral, hitting 1 million downloads in less than 5 days. People went crazy making videos of SpongeBob getting arrested, Michael Jackson hanging out with a bear, and things of that nature. When the Sora app first launched, OpenAI implemented almost zero content controls. This soon caused controversy and risked putting OpenAI in legal jeopardy. At first, some of the most viral videos on Sora were very offensive. We won't share them here, but things like Stephen Hawking getting beat up in a boxing match. Within 2 weeks, OpenAI had to block users from depicting Martin Luther King Jr. because so many people were making offensive and racist videos with his likeness. Another issue is copyright. People made videos with SpongeBob, Mario, Pikachu, etc. These characters are copyrighted, and Sora should not be allowed to make them without permission. A few weeks into the launch, OpenAI made an update blocking users from depicting copyrighted characters. We can see here that OpenAI is following its long-standing strategy of breaking the rules first and asking for forgiveness later. It was predictable and inevitable that people would depict copyrighted characters and make offensive depictions of both living and deceased celebrities. It was predictable that these types of videos would gain the most virality. OpenAI made the decision to initially launch the Sora app with zero safeguards in place. This allowed Sora to gain huge amounts of attention and virality in the first couple of weeks. OpenAI later says, "My bad, we didn't think people would abuse the platform," and they eventually put in place the safeguards. But of course they knew people would abuse the platform. They wanted this to happen. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has a website called samaltman.com where he writes blog posts. On October 3rd, a few days after the launch of Sora, he made the following post, quote, "We are going to have to somehow make money for video generation. People are generating much more than we expected per user, and a lot of videos are being generated for very small audiences. We're going to try sharing some of this revenue with rights holders who want their characters generated by users. The exact model will take some trial and error to figure out, but we plan to start very soon. Our hope is that the new kind of engagement is even more valuable than the revenue share, but of course we want both to be valuable," unquote. Altman's post is delusional for multiple reasons. Firstly, he says engagement on Sora is going to be valuable for rights holders. The type of engagement brands can hope to receive on Sora is in no way valuable. Do you think Nintendo appreciates the thousands of videos that are made of Pikachu getting arrested? Does this help support their family-friendly brand image? Then he says they'll share revenue with the copyright owners if they allow their characters to appear in Sora videos. If you're going to share revenue, you need to have some revenue to share. Currently, Sora generates almost zero revenue, and there's no obvious path to monetization. Sora allows any user to generate 30 videos per day for free. There are no ads on Sora. It's unlikely that advertising will ever be a viable revenue model for Sora. No self-respecting brand would want to advertise next to AI slop. Just to see what's what, I downloaded the Sora app and tried to make some videos. I messed around with it for about an hour and used up the 30 free generations it gave me for the day. I was able to make the following video.
These Sora videos cost us 40 million last month and we got, 12 views. The server bill alone is bigger than the revenue line. This is insane. Why did we think people wanted a 2-hour generative skating dragon movie? Nobody's watching it.
I tried making this video more than a dozen times, each with a slightly modified prompt. This is the best one it made, and it wasn't even that good. I didn't post it, but even if I did, it probably would have gotten almost 0 views. OpenAI incurs massive computational costs to operate Sora. So how much money did OpenAI lose from me trying to make my crappy Sam Altman video? OpenAI partners with Microsoft's cloud service Azure to sell Sora capabilities to external customers. If you have your own software or website, you can pay to integrate Sora on the back end. By looking at the external prices on Azure, we can estimate how much computational cost it takes to make each Sora video. Even if you use the worst, low-res Sora model, it costs 10 cents per second. Sora generates 10-second videos, so that's $1 of computing costs. I maxed out my daily limit, so I incurred $30 of cost to OpenAI. At least based on Azure's pricing to third-party customers. I didn't even post my Sora video, so nobody watched it. But let's say I had posted it, and somehow it got 1 billion views within the Sora app. OpenAI would still generate 0 revenue because there are no ads. Currently, OpenAI is probably losing hundreds of millions of dollars per month just by operating the Sora app. So what is the plan? How does OpenAI ever intend to make money from Sora? The OpenAI executive in charge of Sora is a man named Bill Peebles. He made a Twitter post trying to explain, quote, "We are launching the ability to buy extra generations on Sora. We've been quite amazed by how much our power users want to use Sora, and the economics are currently completely unsustainable. We thought 30 free generations per day would be more than enough, but clearly we were wrong. This will let our pro creators get as much usage as they want to pay for. We imagine a world where rights holders have the option to charge extra for cameos of beloved characters and people." We will soon pilot monetization, prioritizing people and companies who got onto the platform early. This will also be a way for a new generation of Sora creators to make money, unquote. First off, this guy's a senior executive at a massive tech company, probably getting paid millions of dollars, but he doesn't know how to capitalize the first word of each sentence he writes. Poor grammar aside, there are a few aspects of his statement that make no sense. He's amazed by how much the power users want to use Sora. How does he know that? I maxed out the daily limit of 30 generations to make my crappy Sam Altman video. Does that make me a power user? A lot of people did make Sora videos just to mess around, like I did. Almost nobody will pay real money for this. The plan seems to be that the so-called power users want to generate Sora videos so much that they'll be willing to pay real money to generate more than 30 videos per day. And brands like Nintendo are going to be willing to license their valuable intellectual property. The power users are going to pay extra money so that they can make AI slop videos of Pikachu being arrested. This whole plan is like a bad joke. People says they will soon start monetization. Presumably, he means they'll show ads on Sora. It is inconceivable that Sora can generate enough ad revenue to cover its massive computing costs. Short-form video ads are notoriously cheap. For example, TikTok pays its creators between 40 cents and $1 per 1,000 views they receive. This is a pittance. Sora will have a much more difficult time monetizing than TikTok. No self-respecting advertiser will want to associate their brand with AI slop. There are many TikTok influencers who make a lot of money. They build up a large following, which allows them to land lucrative affiliate marketing and brand sponsorship deals. This is not possible on Sora. You're not going to become an AI slop influencer. There's no incentive for anyone to spend real money to generate Sora videos. Sam Altman has long made grandiose claims about the economic potential of his company's AI. For example, he says AI will one day cure cancer. OpenAI wants to raise trillions of dollars to build massive AI data centers. Altman justifies this investment by saying they will eventually achieve a vague concept called Artificial General Intelligence, or AGI. AGI will be so revolutionary that it will be worth $1 quadrillion, thereby making up for the massive losses the company has incurred to date. This past August, Sam Altman went on CNBC, where he answered questions about OpenAI's losses.
The company's still losing money, and obviously you're building Stargate among them. What is the path to profitability? When do you see the lines cross, if you will?
I mean, I think it could happen sooner than I originally thought if we wanted it to, but it seems to me like the right thing to do is to just keep investing in compute and continuing to grow.
But is that
to continue to like grow our training compute budget? Is
that a couple of years from now then, you think? Or I mean, you're saying if you stopped investing?
No, I think we should be willing to keep growing, to keep investing in training compute for a long time. Like as long as we're on this very steep curve of the models getting better and better, I think the rational thing to do is to just be willing to run at a loss for quite a while and continue to do that, which is...
Altman tries to justify OpenAI's losses by saying they're investing in training compute. The models are getting better and better at a very fast rate. No doubt OpenAI spent a lot of money to develop the Sora 2 model, and maybe this research somehow gets them closer to AGI. But allowing millions of people to make Sora videos for free, all at OpenAI's expense, this does not serve any useful purpose. Why did they create the Sora app? The Sora launch was widely clowned across social media. For example, a Twitter user called Runner Tushar made the following post, quote, Sam Altman 2 weeks ago, we need $7 trillion and 10 gigawatts to cure cancer. Sam Altman today, we are launching AI slop videos marketed as personalized ads, unquote. Sam Altman is very active on Twitter, and he replied to this post, quote, I get the vibe here, but we do mostly need the capital for build AI that can do science, and for sure we are focused on AGI with almost all of our research effort. It is also nice to show people cool new tech products along the way, make them smile, and hopefully make some money given all that compute need. When we launched ChatGPT, there were a lot of who needs this and where is AGI. Reality is nuanced when it comes to optimal trajectories for a company, unquote. It seems like it's against company policy to use proper grammar in a tweet. Supposedly, Sora is intended to make profits and they'll reinvest those profits to achieve AGI and cure cancer. But does Sam Altman really expect Sora to be profitable? On October 8th, Sam Altman appeared as a guest on the A16Z podcast. A16Z is a venture capital firm that is a shareholder in OpenAI. During the podcast, Altman may have inadvertently told the truth.
Which bets would you say are enablers of AGI versus which are sort of hedges against uncertainty? I think you could say that on the surface, Sora, for example, does not look like it's AGI relevant, but I would bet that if we can build really great world models, that'll be much more important to AGI than people think. There were a lot of people who thought ChatGPT was not a very AGI relevant thing, and it's been very helpful to us, not only in building better models and understanding how society wants to use this, but also in like bringing society along to actually figure out, man, we got to contend with this thing now. For a long time before ChatGPT, we would talk about AGI, and people were like, "This is not happening," or "We don't care." And then all of a sudden, they really cared. And I think that, so research benefits aside, I'm a big believer that society and technology have to co-evolve. You can't just drop the thing at the end. It doesn't work that way. It is a sort of.
Sam Altman is a big believer that society and technology have to co-evolve. What does that mean? OpenAI is losing a lot of money. As we explained at the beginning of this video, in the third quarter alone, the company lost more than $15 billion. These losses can be partially attributed to research and development as they build new AI models, but they also lose money operating their existing models. The ongoing computational cost of running ChatGPT is so great that they lose money even on the pro subscribers who pay $200 per month. From a pure business perspective, ChatGPT has been a commercial failure. It cost billions of dollars to develop. They're never going to recoup this investment because they lose even more money just to operate it. But ChatGPT did kick off the AI investment craze, allowing OpenAI to raise $60 billion from venture capitalists. From this perspective, it was a huge success. Now OpenAI's cash burn is so huge that they will soon exhaust the pool of available venture capital. They need to keep retail investors excited for their upcoming IPO, where they're looking to raise at least $60 billion. OpenAI needs to maintain the appearance that they're growing and advancing, regardless of the unit economics. And unit economics don't matter because they're eventually going to develop the mythical AGI. But is it really true that OpenAI's AI models are increasing at a very steep rate? In March of 2023, they launched ChatGPT 4. ChatGPT 5 was launched in August of 2025, more than 2 years later. Sam Altman hyped up ChatGPT 5 to a grandiose degree. In January of 2025, Altman wrote the following on his website, quote, "We are now confident that we know how to build AGI as we have traditionally understood it. We believe that, in 2025, we may see the first AI agents join the workforce and materially change the output of companies. We continue to believe that iteratively putting great tools in the hands of people leads to great, broadly distributed outcomes. We are beginning to turn our aim beyond that, to superintelligence in the true sense of the word. We love our current products, but we are here for the glorious future. With superintelligence, we can do anything else. Superintelligent tools could massively accelerate scientific discovery and innovation well beyond what we are capable of doing on our own, and in turn massively increase abundance and prosperity," unquote. In this blog post, he was presumably referring to ChatGPT 5, which would be released 8 months later. They already knew how to build artificial general intelligence. ChatGPT 5 would presumably be a big step towards AGI, and according to Altman, will materially change the output of companies. In the launch video, Sam Altman said the original ChatGPT 3 was like talking to a high school student. GPT 4 was like talking to a college student. GPT 5 is like talking to a PhD level expert on whatever topic you're asking about, and it is a major step towards AGI. But upon its release, it appeared to be at best a marginal improvement over GPT 4, and for many users, their experience actually got worse. For example, this Reddit user who pays $200 per month for ChatGPT Pro complains of it giving him blatantly false information. He shared his chat history. He asked ChatGPT to give the GDP of EU countries. It told him that Poland had a GDP of $2.2 trillion. It claimed to have gotten this data from the IMF website. In reality, Poland's GDP is $900 billion. So ChatGPT made up a number that was off by a factor of more than 2. It will give wrong ingredients for basic recipes, and when you ask it about world leaders and presidents, it gives out-of-date answers. In this user's experience, it provides false answers more than half the time. ChatGPT's propensity to confidently make up fake information has always been its major drawback, and this has not been fixed by GPT-5. If anything, it's gotten worse. If you can't even tell me the GDP of Poland, how are you going to create a superintelligent AGI? It's questionable whether or not AI is yielding the massive productivity gains Altman and other tech bros have promised. For example, in June of 2025, Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff said 30 to 50% of their internal work is now being done by AI. Salesforce has been aggressively implementing AI tools internally since shortly after ChatGPT was launched in 2022. If AI is now doing 30 to 50% of the work, you'd expect them to lay off 30 to 50% of their employees. As of the end of Salesforce's fiscal year on January 31st, 2025, they had 76,000 full-time employees. This is an increase from the 73,000 employees they had at the end of 2024. They only report their employee count once per year in their annual report. In September, Benioff revealed that he had laid off 4,000 customer support workers out of a total of 9,000 because a lot of customer service inquiries are now being handled by AI. So it is indeed true that almost half of customer support workers have been laid off, but this represents only 5% of the company's total headcount. It seems like AI is pretty much only useful for customer service. If AI was really doing 30 to 50% of all of Salesforce's internal workloads, as Benioff claimed, they should have laid off at least 22,000 employees, not 4,000. Not only that, but it looks like the company's net headcount is actually increasing. On September 12th, 2 weeks after Benioff bragged about laying off 4,000 customer service workers, he gave an interview to CNBC where he said they now have 80,000 employees. So while they laid off 4,000 people, they hired another 8,000. Why would you need to hire so many people when AI is supposedly doing half the company's total work? It's unclear if AI is even effective at customer service. If you've ever called a customer service hotline and were answered by an AI voice, you probably didn't have a great experience. For most jobs, AI's propensity to hallucinate makes it unusable. Maybe this problem is unsolvable. For this core problem, maybe there is no solution. Of course, Sam Altman can't admit that. His company is burning so much cash that they need to raise at least $60 billion in their upcoming IPO. They need to distract away from the lack of progress at ChatGPT, and the fact that AGI seems to be slipping further and further out of reach. This whole Sora thing is a distraction. It got OpenAI back in the headlines for a few weeks thanks to the crazy videos it can generate. But this is completely useless. It just serves as yet another money sink, burning through their venture capital funds. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. What do you think about Sora? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you in the next one. Wall Street Millennial, signing out.
Change is the only constant. Will the decade ahead be one mired in economic depression, unemployment, and suffering? Only time will tell. But in this video, I'm going to talk to you about which jobs and occupations I believe are robust to the upcoming economic upheaval, to automation and the AI revolution. And I also want to look at a macro level which economies are set to do well on balance of probability should do well and which ones won't do as well. In the last couple of days, Jack Dorsey has announced an additional 4,000 layoffs at Block, and while he says it's due to the productivity gains in automation, they don't need as many people anymore, they don't need as many software engineers, we can't really take that on face value. It could just be that they've hired too many people in the last few years. Nevertheless, change is the only constant, and we're going to see more and more layoffs, whether we like it or not. I want to lean on some of my own professional experience when it comes to thinking about which jobs or which sectors should do well and which ones are going to be more heavily affected. But I want to remind you of a statistic that I heard, which I found was quite interesting. Now, back in the 13th century in England and Wales, more than half of the population was engaged in agriculture and farming. And as of the latest data from the United Kingdom government, in 2024, it was 1.3%. So over time, sectors do change. What people do dramatically changes. And even up until the 1950s, a lot of people still worked in agriculture, and that is no longer the case. Our productivity gains in agriculture have displaced many people. We've also seen it, for example, in banking. So I used to work in banking, and I think one rule of thumb for trying to work out which jobs are going to be automated first is we can just say, well, which ones were offshored first? And ordinarily, it's not the client-facing roles. Bank tellers used to be a thing. Only a few decades ago, all of those people lost their jobs. We now have automatic teller machines, and that is automation, all right? So that was a big displacement of people. Now, back in the day, banks, especially when they were nationalized, would take those people and they would try to place them into another part of the bank, and they would have, obviously, there's every year a certain amount of people retiring and leaving the bank. So there is a certain amount of room for retraining and that kind of thing. And because I worked in banking, I want to make the case that I don't think banking is going to be that much affected, nor will any regulated industries really, because even when I worked in the bank more than a decade ago, I found that a lot of the jobs that existed back then should or could have already been automated, but they were protected by barriers to entry, by heavy regulation. And so even though a lot of the jobs in banking, even in developed, so-called developed economies, are super menial, they could be automated with a spreadsheet. I remember once in the first job that I had, I created a pivot table. If anyone's experienced with Excel, it's not considerably difficult, but allows you to look at data in certain different ways. Anyway, my manager was fascinated. They couldn't believe how I could present this data with just a pivot table. So there's already a lot of people in the banking sector, which I consider quasi-government. They're protected by regulation. It's not a competitive industry. And so I don't consider that even though there's going to be a lot of automation, that banking and regulated sectors like insurance, for example, or government, because I consider these really to be a wing or an arm of the government, even if they're private, because they are so heavily regulated. So I don't think that a lot of government jobs are going to be heavily affected. I don't think that insurance jobs and other finance jobs are going to be heavily affected. The ones that were affected, the jobs in finance, for example, which were affected, were offshored, and they were sent to primarily India. If you were in an English-speaking country, the Philippines or India were two of the biggest beneficiaries of this offshoring, and it was super cheap for them to manage and to hire cheap offshore talent. I think that that doesn't bode well for a country like India, because ultimately their reliance on the remittances is going to be to the detriment of those economies. For example, those jobs were offshored. They were mostly back office, menial tasks, and rather than automating the task, they got another human to do it for much cheaper. But now we can actually just do that job using AI, or we could use basically automation. And for a country like India, that's going to be a huge problem, because India last year had the most births in the world, over 20 million, far and away the most births. So this is going to be a tremendous problem. How do they place their younger people and their massively growing population into jobs when there is a heavy reliance on this service sector? And so service sector is one area that I think is going to be smashed in this automation, particularly with respect to what has previously been offshored. Now, other economies that I don't think are going to do so badly, I would put in the category of like advanced manufacturing economies. I'd put Korea, Japan, China. You could also put countries like Germany previously, but they've got a lot of problems now. I won't go into that. Italy, northern Italy is Italy is the second largest manufacturing economy in Europe. And manufacturing is everything. We've seen that in the Ukraine war. Everyone said that Russia's economy was going to collapse. It turns out they've actually got a very, very sophisticated and robust military industrial base. I'm not saying whether that's good or bad, but manufacturing is going to be one of those things which is going to keep these economies from being dramatically impacted by automation. Now, of course, there is automation in manufacturing. If you look at the BMW factories, if you look at a lot of factories in China now, there's very, very few people. But if you look at those countries, say like Germany and also Japan and China, they're all experiencing a demographic decline. There's a very, very low birth rate. Now, China still has the second highest amount of births every year in terms of the aggregate numbers, but their population is set to decline. And a lot of people say, you know, I saw one propaganda saying this is the end of China.
Saying that China has 10 years to go.
At most.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we now know that they've lied about their population statistics.
I very much doubt that it's the end of China. In fact, the less people that they have, they're going to be able to put more resources into those people. They're going to be more skilled on average, and they're going to be useful in the new economy because it's only going to be the very, very rudimentary tasks which are going to be able to be automated. A high-skilled workforce has never been more valuable. For example, just going back to the bank thing, I hear a lot of people in engineering. Engineering, I'll get to in a moment, but say with respect to the bank, juniors in the bank, juniors in the tech sector is not so different. I'll tell you right now, when you work as a junior in a bank, you are a net negative to the bank, okay? You bring zero value add, pretty much for the first few years, but you're an investment for that bank or that finance institution or that tech company. So don't get too wrapped up in like, will there still be junior engineering jobs and that kind of thing? These companies are still going to hire juniors because juniors have never been necessarily that important to their business model, but they were making it an investment into their future workforce. And of course, sometimes those people leave, but on average, they make a bet and they hope that these people will stay with the company, they'll learn the entire business, and they'll grow with it. So I do think that junior roles are still going to exist in the companies that do well, and those are going to be the regulated ones, as I mentioned a moment ago, or they're going to be in manufacturing, because I believe that manufacturing is going to be of considerable importance now that there's going to be a bit of a shift away from the software. Of course, there's many other jobs which are obvious. Translators are sadly going to be heavily affected. I love languages. I think that it's a tragedy, but this is one area where productivity tools and translation are going to be disruptive. Other jobs that are physically present, where you have to be proximate, like a hairdresser or a plumber or an electrician, this is very, very difficult to automate, even with robotics. The standards are always different. You require a lot of dexterity. I anticipate that tradespeople are going to be using robots in terms of their productivity, but that those jobs are going to still be important. Now, I talked about farming earlier. Farming has already been hugely automated, and farmers are now older than they've ever been globally, or at least they're extremely old. A lot of countries, their farmers are well into their 60s on average, and so people are still going to have to eat. Farming is being automated, sure, but how much is there left to automate? I would say that a lot of the automation in farming has already been done. And because people are older and older in the farming sector, then they are going to be retiring, and that's going to give an area where I believe that there's going to be considerable growth. There's going to be opportunity in terms of agriculture. Generally speaking, I think that where people or professionals can bring real value, very, very tangible value that changes the bottom line for a company or dramatically improves the customer experience, these jobs are going to still exist. So what do I mean by that? I know accounting pretty well. So in accounting, you have a lot of accountants who are just compliance pen pushers. And this is going to be heavily automated, but the accountants with a lot of foresight became the business coach. They were able to be the coach or the mentor for their clients. And so actually they transformed that business already accountancy, and they made it really into a business which is about business coaching, being a mentor, being a trusted advisor. And those firms that engaged with that strategy are already earning way more than the compliance monkeys. The same thing goes for things like graphic design. For example, if you are just doing low value-added Fiverr work and you're just churning out graphic designs or whatever, AI is going to automate a lot of that. And I would also equate that, for example, one of the other first jobs that I had was I worked in a bar, but it wasn't any bar. It was at the biggest cricket ground in Australia, and they had a corporate suite, and you had to have certain skills. For example, you had to know how to pour lots of different kinds of drinks. You had to engage with the clientele. You had to talk shop. Basically, a bartender, and you see them these kind of high-end bartender jobs or service jobs in the casinos and that kind of thing. So I think that they're still going to exist. You might have convenience stores that are fully automated, but people still want the experience of going to have a drink and having a bartender that knows how to pour a good martini or whatever it is. So there's high-end jobs, which are obviously still, they wouldn't be considered high-end in terms of professional white-collar jobs, but they still require a lot of skill, and I think they're still going to exist. The last one that I'm going to touch on before we get to engineering is military, and I'm very conflicted about this. I actually spent a bit of time in the reserves in Australia myself, which is not that egregious because it's a very, very small military, and generally speaking, it's just a bolt-on for the US military. But we are living in an unprecedented period, or at least in the last 70 years, unprecedented period of geopolitical upheaval. We're already seeing conflicts all around the world flare up, and security, policing, and military occupations are going to do well. Now, obviously, you have to be comfortable doing that kind of thing. If you look, I saw an interview recently with Russian military personnel, and they were talking about how the average soldier now is 30 to 40 years of age, and a lot of that is to do with the fact that they require a certain amount of technical acumen that being 18 years old and being like in the First World War, just being sent over the trench is just not enough anymore. A lot of these jobs in the military sector are very complex or complicated. They require knowledge of advanced weapon systems, and I think that this is going to be a sector, although I feel conflicted about it, and I think there's a pending attack on Iran, which I very much condemn any kind of war, but I do think this is going to be a sector which is growing, and especially when we see more and more upheaval in terms of countries which are going to be very much affected with high unemployment rates and that kind of thing. I think that security is going to play a role there. Now, the last thing I'll just say with engineering, which obviously my channel is mainly around tech, but like I said with the banking example, junior bankers, they bring very little value. They're basically just pitch deck monkeys, and in a lot of tech companies, a lot of juniors are maybe just code monkeys. Code monkeys and pitch deck monkeys eventually going to be extinct, but I still think that companies are going to invest in younger people, in junior engineers, because it's an investment for them. But if you want to remain relevant, you're going to have to be leveraging all the AI tooling. You're going to have to also be good at your craft. It's so hard. I saw a comment on one of my recent videos. They were talking about, this is basically the world's change, and in order to get the good skills to become a senior, you have to go through the hard yards of building something, but now that's automated. A lot of that's automated, and so how is a junior going to become any good? And I would still say that knowing and understanding how to read code and building something from scratch without AI is going to be important. Once you get to a certain level of technical ability, then it's time to leverage those tools available to you to become hyper productive. And like in the case of Block that we saw, if we take Jack Dorsey at face value, which I very much would be hesitant to do so, but let's just say that there were massive AI productivity gains, you want to be one of those engineers which is now not 10 but 50 or 100 times more productive because of the use of AI tooling. Now I don't think that it's actually like that. I have a different belief when it comes to AI, when it comes to a lot of these automation. I think that we're seeing a drop in quality, but the emphasis is no longer on quality, all right? Think about the bank teller. It used to be better when you went to the bank and you could interact with a human, you could get the money from them. The experience of that human interaction, even when you go to the supermarket now and you just scan with a barcode yourself. Sure, you can get a few free items, fair enough, but I personally think that it was better when we lived in a society where we had more human interaction, and now that this is all being automated, I don't think it's better, but there's a profit motive. And so if you are in engineering, I still think a lot of these engineering, top level engineering is still going to exist because so many edge cases are very difficult. AI is definitely not capable of it. Perhaps we'll never be capable of it, but in the right hands, it makes someone who is capable of it really, really, really productive. So those are the jobs and also some of the economies that I think are robust and also some that are really fragile. Let me know what you think. Which countries and jobs do you think are going to do really well, and which ones do you think are just doomed to, in the case of some jobs, just not exist anymore, like many jobs in history have been totally eradicated? And which country, do you feel like your country is going to be negatively affected, or how do you feel? I forgot to mention that I do think that some countries that never achieved, and I don't mean this in a condescending sense, but maybe a lot of people would say Thailand. It's not super wealthy, although it's much wealthier than people think. Not super advanced, although it does have a big manufacturing sector. Italy as well, a lot of people like to criticize Italy. These are countries which are naturally robust because they have populations who are robust. They're not highly centralized. If you look at the UK and France, all the wealth is generated in Paris or in London. There's very little wealth in other parts. We see this in Russia as well. Countries like Italy and Thailand, there is actually a good amount of decentralization, and I think decentralization is going to be a real boon for many countries. Countries like the United States, I haven't mentioned the United States, but the United States, there's a saying, never bet against an American, and I think the United States is another example, like China, of quite a decentralized economy. Some of you will say China's not decentralized. China is massively decentralized. It's got huge cities and it's got an industrial base which is, dispersed all across the country. Of course, more towards the coast, and the wealth tends to be more along the coast. Nevertheless, it is extremely decentralized economically in China. Why do I think that decentralization is going to be a boon for these countries? Well, because decentralization means credit is created in different parts of the country. So if you have banks operating in different cities, you've got smaller towns. Germany and Japan were examples of this, as well as China and America. Then this is going to create jobs and credit in those places. And so I think that I remember reading that Deng Xiaoping in the 20s was in Moscow, and he saw that Lenin's new economic policy was a catastrophe and people were starving, and it was definitely not working out. It had ruined their economy, which before the revolution, actually Russia had the fastest growing economy in Europe. So he saw that, Deng Xiaoping saw that, and when he finally got into power in the 70s and 80s, he went on obviously he liberalized economically a lot, but he also allowed for a lot of the banking to happen around in a decentralized fashion. So any country which is highly centralized is highly fragile to this automation revolution. I'll do another video on finance because I think that finance is an area I'm profoundly familiar with, but it's a whole topic on its own. So nevertheless, this video is about the automation. Change is the only constant. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching.
you.